history repeats itself. It is not history that has anything to do with League of Legends, and it is not history that has anything to do with Riot Games. And still, Riot is making a move we've seen only a few months ago, and they are trying to make a move that shocked the entire industry a few years ago. But in Riot's case, the outcome might be one massive gamble. So the news came literally out of nowhere, with 2 Korean pro players just starting their streams, and they casually revealed that Riot Games is working on League of Legends Classic. Now, how credible is this? Well, quite a lot considering it is Doinb and Uzi, but somehow I still have no idea how it's possible for something like this to leak. For context, I do have my fair share of experience dealing with Riot's NDAs, and after about 10 years, I still successfully never leaked anything. And that's because the way Riot works is that when they show you something, either because of testing or because they need opinions, or to just give creators some time ahead to make content, they always show you the dates and they remind them at the beginning and at the end of every presentation. And because people still keep leaking stuff, they shove the embargo dates in your face at every opportunity. And so, for someone to just come out and casually reveal this, I have no idea how it's possible. What is even more hilarious is the way Doinb and Uzi presented these news. Doinb said, and I quote, "I don't really have any news. All I know is that Classic server is supposed to come out next month." So you do have news. After which Uzi came out and said, and I quote, "The word on the street is League of Legends is getting a Classic server. Is it public knowledge? I still can't talk about it." After which he realized that Riot hasn't said anything yet, and he kinda realized he screwed up by revealing it. After which he freaked out even more because Riot really hasn't announced it, considering it is coming out soon. Which lines up with Doinb mentioning it should be coming out next month. So as far as Alibi goes, this seems legit, and it is funny to see it got leaked so casually. And what supports this even more is another chain of events that happened around Riot. But more on that later. First, what even is Classic League of Legends? Well, as far as we know, the idea would be the same thing that Blizzard pulled off, which made them an unholy amount of money, and that was releasing Classic WoW, which became one of the biggest releases in MMO history. Essentially, just like how Classic WoW released the original World of Warcraft. Because after 20 years of updates the game became totally different, League of Legends might be trying to do the same thing. AKA, League of Legends might be coming out with a new game mode that allows you to play League of Legends from Season 2. Or another well-known old season from the past. And you see, that is exactly where Classic League of Legends might run into some issues. Now, the truth is that the idea of Classic League has been around the community for a while. And all it takes is a quick search or two to find many videos on YouTube talking about this potential. And the rule of content states that if there is one person talking about a topic, it is guaranteed that there will be other people with the same mindset that will be interested in the same thing. Meaning, there is definitely gonna be some demand for League Classic. However, as we just mentioned, it is not gonna be easy to pull it off. Because what exactly is League Classic? Is it League from 10 years ago, or is it League from 15 years ago? Because truth be told, Season 1 of League of Legends was a lot different from Season 6 of League of Legends. And that is one of the biggest obstacles here. With World of Warcraft, Blizzard knew exactly what they needed to do. Because Vanilla WoW was a very specific time period in the game's lifespan, which people just really wanted to experience again. On top of which, all Blizzard had to do was follow the patches of the game as it released, which guaranteed that people would be going through progressive content. In League, if we go back to the old seasons, there wasn't any progressive content. Back in the day, new content for League of Legends was new skins, because back then skins weren't oversaturated yet and so people got excited about everything, or new champions. Because again, there weren't too many champions yet and they were coming out about every 3 weeks. On top of which, to sprinkle in some new fast and fun game modes, Dominion came out of nowhere. But I strongly doubt that's something you wanna do with League Classic. I don't believe you wanna have a progressive thing, because eventually you do end up with Modern League anyway. Which, yes, that is the exact same problem that Classic WoW eventually ran into after Wrath of the Lich King. But again, with WoW, the progression is completely different from League of Legends. Here, because you don't have a theme that ties together multiple seasons, you kinda just have to pick one season and stick with it. And once you lock it in, you just need to give the players the old experience of that season. And that is where issue number 2 comes in. Balance! Because if you take old League and you give it to new players that solved the game in many ways, people are gonna destroy it. And that's good. Honestly, if League Classic becomes a thing, it needs to focus on the fun. Or potentially destroying the fun of the enemy with AP Scion. And that's because that's pretty much the spirit of Classic League. Back in the day, most people didn't even play ranked. They didn't min-max every part of every champion. I mean, of course, at the highest level, people still did. But at that point, the game was still pretty much taken over by the casual audience, and people just picked whatever champions they wanted in whatever lane they wanted. Because nobody understood the meta, and everyone was here to have fun. And this is the experience that Classic League needs to deliver. Of course, people will still try to force some kind of meta onto the old game, that is unavoidable. But when it comes to the balance, just don't. Just give the game to the players as it was back then and see what happens. Which also brings up another interesting issue. Remember, the old League had talent trees, it had a completely different rune system, and it had completely different setting up of champions. So how is that gonna work? Well, could Riot actually spin up the old systems in the new client? Technically, using the new UI of the client, yes they could. And the way you could handle this is by giving the players unlimited amount to the old resources. This means unlocking the talents and giving people free runes. Because remember, back in the day, the runes were quite the sink. And then you just let people customize the builds just as it worked back then. But the issue would be that now you are taking up memory because people are saving all the builds. Though I guess that one could work if it is stored locally, but if it is stored locally, then hacking could happen. So the other solution would be for every champion to just have a build already built into the champion. Kinda how you just pick a champion in ARAM and you don't deal with builds. But you would still need different options for champions to be junglers, or not, and stuff. Not to mention hybrid champions. And that brings up yet another issue. You see, there is a good chance that Riot has the old assets from the old version stored somewhere. And there is a good chance that they did find a way to spin it all up. But it is extremely likely that they are not gonna be launching the old engine to run old League on it. Security reasons aside, old League was built for old hardware with old drivers, and so when it comes to compatibility, if you launch old League now, there's gonna be a bunch of errors. Interestingly enough, when Classic WoW launched, Blizzard fixed this by making Classic WoW run on the framework of the modern WoW client, meaning it is using the modern WoW engine to run it. That is why Classic WoW was technically better than the old version, because it has improved lighting and it has better materials for water. And it is not because Blizzard wanted to make Classic WoW look better, instead it is because they couldn't make it look worse. And when it comes to League Classic, Riot will have to do the exact same thing. Especially if Vanguard is in play. And so if they actually manage to run League Classic, it has to be running on the modern engine. And so already, if this was done by the Game Modes team, they deserve a big applause, because making this run is gonna be a miracle. But also yes, because of this, it is unlikely that League Classic is gonna be a separate server with a separate game, but rather it is gonna be a time-limited game mode inside League of Legends. Because on top of this, you can't make it run with a separate store and the old skins. People are gonna freak out because they already bought them. And so because it has to be integrated into the new client, a game mode would make sense. In fact, I believe this would be the easiest way to do this in the first place. Because if Classic League launches as a time-limited game mode, with Season 1 specifically, because if you wanna start somewhere, then it makes sense to start at the very beginning. If it becomes a success, well, next time you can do a time-limited run of Season 2. followed by Season 3, and so on. By doing this, Riot can actually utilize the fun of League Classic, and they can technically give it the same progressive feeling which all the other retro relaunched games have. And if you do this frequently enough, you can actually attract new players. Which leaves us with one more thing to be mentioned. Assuming the general audience would like Classic to happen, how likely is it that Riot is actually working on it right now? Well, at the beginning of this video I did mention that history repeats itself, and now there is quite a big chance that Classic is happening. So first, let's talk about Chrono Shift. This is something that many of you will not know about, because it is kinda black market kinda deal. But for quite some time, the League of Legends community was trying to spin up their own private servers for old League of Legends, with one of these projects actually becoming successful, and that one was called Chrono Shift. Now, in many ways, Chrono Shift was the exact same idea as people running private servers of Classic WoW before Blizzard released the official Classic WoW. And so, if you search Chrono Shift on YouTube, you will actually find a lot of gameplay videos. And the thing is, about 3 years ago, Riot shut Chrono Shift down with cease and desist, which is exactly what Blizzard did to the other vanilla WoW servers before Blizzard released their own Classic WoW. So the chances are that the history is repeating itself, and Riot is now shutting down other private servers so they can release their own. And so now, if we take this into account, there are other things that are lining up. For example, remember that Freak was taken away from the live development of League of Legends, and he was moved onto another project of League of Legends. And since Freak is one of the OGs from the very beginning of the entirety of League of Legends, he would have the knowledge of how the game ran back in the day. Though that entire part is still a big tinfoil hat theory. But on top of this, a few weeks ago you might have seen on social media that Riot invited another wave of creators into their headquarters, and this time it seems like the summit had a lot of veteran players as well as pros. Also, they let Skin Spotlights in. He probably data mined like 8 future projects. And so, overall, taking everything we just learned into account, if you thought League wouldn't be getting anything big before the big update of 2027, well, Riot might actually be hiding quite a few secrets up their sleeves, with the chances that someone doesn't pull the things out of their sleeves. But somehow, this time, the new content we might be getting is not catering towards the younger audiences. No, they are already getting the WASD as well as the controller support. No, somehow, the new content is catering towards the boomers. And seeing it is 20-year-old content, we are ancient.